You stare into the glass. The mirror stares back. As you shift your focus from your left pupil to your right pupil, you expect to catch the physical movement of your own eyes sweeping across the reflection. The movement never appears. Why are you entirely blind to your own body in motion? You try it again. The result is identical. Your brain is constantly rendering a seamless version of reality, but it achieves this by aggressively deleting the moments when your visual hardware is actually repositioning itself. You are living an edited broadcast. What else is being hidden from you right now? You assume you blinked. The thought feels reassuring. Every time you shift your gaze to scan a room, your eyes whip across the space in a violent, jerky motion known scientifically as a saccade. These jumps are incredibly fast. Are you ready to see the glitch in your reality? The blur should sicken. The physics demand it. If a camera panned at the same chaotic speed as your biological lenses, the resulting footage would be an unwatchable smear of twisted light and washed-out color. Your vision is always crystal clear. How does your mind fix the terrible footage? The visual cortex shuts. The feed is severed. Instead of forcing you to experience the dizzying blur of a saccade, your neurological operating system simply drops the video signal completely until the eye lands firmly on its target. You are effectively legally blind. Why do you feel like you see everything? The darkness is stitched. The gaps are hidden. By masking the exact duration of the rapid movement, your conscious mind is presented with a series of high-resolution photographs that masquerade perfectly as a continuous, unbroken film. The illusion is utterly flawless. Have you ever wondered who is editing the film? The phenomenon is documented. The science is absolute. In the late 19th century, a pioneering experimental psychologist named Raymond Dodge became obsessed with the mechanics of reading and discovered that the eye is completely blind while jumping between words. He called it saccadic suppression. How did a scientist notice what you missed? He watched himself closely. He built a mirror. By observing his own eyes and the eyes of his voluntary subjects, Dodge realized that we only gather visual information during the brief, static pauses between the violent jumps. The jumps themselves are empty voids. Can you imagine losing 40 minutes of sight today? That is the math. The time adds up. Because you perform tens of thousands of these tiny eye movements every waking day, the cumulative duration of your temporary blindness reaches nearly an hour of total darkness. An hour of darkness is missing. Where does the missing time actually go? Your brain covers tracks. The timeline is forged. To prevent you from noticing the daily blackouts, the mind reaches into the immediate future, grabs the image of your final resting focal point, and pastes it backward in time over the gap. Your memory is literally being overwritten. Do you still trust your own memories? You glance at clocks. The second hand hangs. You have likely experienced the sensation that the ticking needle of a standard wall clock is frozen for just a fraction of a second longer than it possibly should be. The pause feels entirely real. Why did time seem to stop just for you? The illusion is chronostasis. The pause is proof. When your eyes darted toward the clock, you were momentarily blind. So your brain stretched your perception of the first moment you saw the clock backward to fill the empty void. You experienced an impossible timeline. Are you realizing how fragile your perception is? The scientist proved lies. The brain was caught. A cognitive neuroscientist named Keelan Yarrow conducted elegant experiments where subjects moved their eyes toward a digital counter, proving definitively that the brain systematically misdates the onset of the visual stimulus. Time is a highly flexible construct. How many of your experiences are just neurological hallucinations? You look around rooms. The space feels solid. Every object you observe is supposedly anchored in an objective reality, but your experience of them is heavily curated by an organ desperately trying to maintain a coherent narrative. The narrative is a biological lie. What happens when the system fails to lie convincingly? The suppression is evolutionary. The shield protects you. If your distant ancestors had to process the dizzying motion blur every time they scanned the dangerous horizon for predators, they would have been paralyzed by sensory overload and debilitating nausea. The blindness is a pure survival mechanism. Do you realize that ignorance keeps you alive? You walk down streets. The world moves smoothly. Researchers like David Burr have extensively documented how this visual suppression specifically targets the neural pathways responsible for detecting motion, effectively muting them while the eye is actively in transit. The motion detectors are deliberately turned off. How much of the physical world are you actually missing? You scroll through phones. The screen changes constantly. As your eyes dart from the top of the illuminated glass to the bottom to absorb new digital information, you are constantly dropping visual frames without ever realizing they are gone. The digital feed is profoundly fragmented. Are you actually absorbing reality or just a slideshow? The reality is fractured. The gaps are profound. We confidently navigate complex environments, drive heavy machinery at lethal speeds, and interact with loved ones while relying entirely on an intermittent, stuttering stream of fractured visual data. The continuity is a masterstroke of systemic deception. Have you ever felt the deception subtly slip? You search for truth. The truth is terrifying. You exist within a dark, silent chamber of solid bone, relying entirely on electrical signals sent by peripheral sensors that are routinely disconnected to save vital processing power. You are entirely alone in the dark. How does it feel to know your brain lies? The brain ignores accuracy. The brain wants survival. It actively prioritizes a stable, actionable model of reality over an objective, physically accurate representation of the chaotic light bouncing off the microscopic atoms around you. Accuracy is far less important than utility. Why do we value the truth when the lie works perfectly? You walk through crowds. The faces blur past. As your focus snaps from one stranger to another in the bustling street, your visual cortex is frantically slicing up the timeline and discarding the messy transitions. You only see the finished portraits. Are you truly seeing people or just the brain's rendering of them? The editing is relentless. The rendering never stops. Every single time you shift your attention to a new shiny object, your mind pulls the curtain down, rearranges the stage in total darkness, and lifts it back up before you notice. You are the sole audience member. When will you finally peek behind the heavy curtain? You close your eyes. The darkness is genuine. For a brief moment, you are consciously experiencing the exact same lack of visual input that your brain forces upon you tens of thousands of times a day without your explicit consent. This is your true baseline state. Are you brave enough to stay in the dark? You open them again. The light floods back. The staggering computational power required to instantly restore the high-definition simulation of the room around you is an absolute marvel of ancient biological engineering. The machinery operates entirely in absolute silence. Do you appreciate the silent labor of your own mind? You watch a bird. The animal takes flight. As you track its erratic path across the vast blue sky, your eyes perform a different, smoother movement called smooth pursuit, which uniquely avoids the harsh blackout effect. The system adapts perfectly to the specific challenge. Why does the brain only blind you during the fastest jumps? The speed dictates terms. The velocity is extreme. A standard saccade can rotate your eyeball at incredibly high speeds of up to 900 degrees per second, creating a visual storm that no biological processor could ever meaningfully decode. The blackout is a necessary hardware limitation. Can you accept that you are biologically limited? You read a book. The words seem static. Your eyes are actually leaping violently from word to word, pausing for mere milliseconds to ingest the letters while completely blinding you to the spaces in between. You are reading a series of disconnected snapshots. How many letters have you completely hallucinated today? The text is an illusion. The meaning is constructed. What feels like a smooth, continuous absorption of profound knowledge is actually a highly fragmented, violently interrupted mechanical process smoothed over by your desperate, meaning-making cerebral cortex. You build the meaning in the empty spaces. Are you reading the book or just dreaming it? You look at art. The painting is beautiful. Your gaze bounces across the vast canvas, extracting tiny details from the colorful brushstrokes, while completely ignoring the physical journey your eye takes to connect them. The art is entirely reassembled inside your head. Are you admiring the painting or your own internal reconstruction? The world is a collage. The pieces are scattered. Your conscious experience is nothing more than a desperate, rapid-fire collage of disconnected static images glued together by the invisible, deceptive paste of your own neurological chronostasis. The glue is remarkably strong. What would happen if the fragile glue suddenly dissolved entirely? You drive a car. The highway moves fast. At 60 miles an hour, every single time your eyes dart to the rearview mirror, you are completely blind while traveling forward at nearly 90 feet per second. You are driving blind through physical space. Does the illusion of continuous control still make you feel perfectly safe? The danger is entirely real. The mechanism ignores danger. Even when your survival depends absolutely on unbroken visual awareness, your brain refuses to lift the blackout protocols, prioritizing a clean, stable simulation over the raw, terrifying truth of the incoming data. The simulation wins every single time. Are you a participant in reality or just a spectator? You talk to friends. The expressions shift subtly. You think you are catching every tiny micro-expression flickering across their faces, but you are systematically missing crucial emotional data every time your eyes adjust to maintain direct contact. You are interacting with a fragmented timeline. How many subtle truths have you missed in the dark? The missing data vanishes. The void consumes it. There is no backup drive, no hidden memory bank where the blurred footage of your daily saccades is stored for later review by your conscious mind. The footage is permanently and irrevocably deleted. Are you comfortable with a mind that deletes your life? You sit very still. The body rests quietly. Even when you believe you are staring perfectly motionless at a fixed point, your eyes are performing microscopic, undetectable twitches called microsaccades to prevent the image from fading out completely. Stillness is another brilliant biological lie. Is there any part of your experience that is genuinely real? The motion is perpetual. The deception is absolute. From the grandest sweeps of your gaze across a majestic mountain range to the tiniest, imperceptible twitches in a dark room, your vision is fundamentally built on a foundation of constant interruption. The interruptions define your entire existence. Will you ever stop looking for a flawless reality? You return to mirrors. The reflection waits patiently. You now understand the violent mechanical reality of the saccades, the immense historical weight of Raymond Dodge, and the temporal forgery of chronostasis that keeps your timeline intact. The knowledge changes the physical experience forever. Can you look at yourself the same way again? You try to beat it. The system is faster. You cannot willfully observe the blur, you cannot manually catch the jump, and you cannot force your visual cortex to keep the lights on during the transit. The biological firewall is entirely unbreachable by human willpower. Will you ever truly see the physical world as it is? The answer is always no. The answer is permanent. Your experience of existence will forever be defined by what your brain actively decides to hide from you, weaving a comforting tapestry of light over a chasm of constant blindness. The illusion is fundamentally all you have. You stare into the glass, but you will never see the person who is actually looking back.